So datasets are, I think I talked about this a little bit last class, which is like, datasets are actually the creative part of machine learning art. And that's basically like, so unlike say painting, which is like, you have to have a vision of the thing, you've got to like start painting, you have to know how to paint. Like this is more or less like we're using, well, I'll get to this example in a minute, but basically like, okay, so here's the example. Let's say we have a robot that plays the guitar. It can play anything we want it to, but we have to tell it what to play. So we could tell it to play country music, we could tell it to play metal. What are the ways that we tell the machine how to play on the guitar? Let's say it knows how to read music. So like this is our data, right? So this is the data part of it. We could feed it sheet music that plays country. We could feed it sheet music that plays metal. But like we have to feed it something. And so this is like the version of data. Now the question here becomes, right? Like so this is for a guitar. So clearly there's like guitar music in country and there's guitar music in metal. Like there's clearly a way to denote that. But like what if we were to give it like music that's made for Bach, right? Made for strings. Like you could play it, but it might come out kind of weird, right? Like it's like got a different, like it's trying to play a violin on a guitar. And so like we're gonna end up in a place where like some of the work we're gonna do is like we're gonna be trying that just to see what we get, right? So we could feed this machine like stuff made for a violin, and it would be like, well, let's see what happens. Or like, so basically like this is, what we're also gonna be doing is like trying stuff out. We're not gonna know if everything's always gonna work the way we expect it to. So like data sets are also the hardest part of machine learning. And the reason they're hard is in part because like we think we know what the robot does, but we're not sure. Or it's just like gathering like thousands and thousands of country music songs and sheet music is hard. In this example, like that's actually easy because there's some websites where we could do a bunch of that. But like some of the things that we're going to be trying to do are not going to be as easy. So I showed this graph last time, but I'll just bring it up again just so people are aware. So I talked about some of these models we're going to use. Each of these models takes a different has a different requirement of sort of like minimum amount of images to feed it. So I'm talking about data sets. I'm basically talking about number of images and types of images you can feed a thing. So with style transfers, there's two images. You need a content image and a style image, and I'll talk about that. But like, you only need two images. For next frame prediction, you need one video. That's it. So like, for those two, that's pretty easy to come up with, right? Like I go to YouTube, like download a video, and like I've got a video. Now, the videos I download might not work very well. And that's part of like what I have to figure out is like, what's a video that works well with next frame prediction? Or like, what are two images that work well in style transfer? Some of that might mean I have to tweak the model or like the arguments a little bit, or I have to find new images. And that's where it gets a little tricky, is like I have to figure out like, is it the images that are screwing it up, or is it the way I'm running the model that's screwing it up? So now we get into the other ones where like we're starting to work with some bigger images here, or like bigger data sets. So CycleGAN requires about 250 images, but you need two different sets, right? So this is horse to zebra. So you need 250 images of horses and 250 images of zebras. So like that's probably doable. You could actually do that manually if you really wanted to. You go through Google Images and like probably download a bunch. But you might want to think about like, well, am I showing just the head of the horse? Am I showing the full body? Do I need a mix of it? You might have to try it and figure out what you need. For pix to pix, you need about 500 images, and you also need two folders or two sets. But we'll talk a little bit more about what this means with the two sets here. But it's much harder to actually produce this two sets because they have to be really, really tightly coupled. And I'll show some examples of that in a minute. And then for StyleGAN, we need 1,000 plus images, right? So we need 1,000 images of someone's face, or we need 1,000 images of flowers, or we need 1,000 images of some set of images. And if you only have 1,000, they've got to be pretty similar images. The more images you get, the more diverse the image set can be. So again, it's like finding 1,000 images is not easy, but there are ways to go about doing it. You might get something close to what you need. So how do you actually go about making a data set? So there's a bunch of ways you can do this. There are pre-made data sets. So most of the models that we run off of also come with training data sets. So if you want to use those, you could. You won't invent anything new. You'll just like recreate the models that they already have. That's fine. Maybe that's an easy way for you to explore or just try some things out. It's available. Your second option is to actually like sort of cobble some data sets together, right? So there might be like a shoe data set over here, a shoe data set over here. You might say like, cool, let me just combine them. Now I've got a new training set. It's a little different than what other people have done, but like I was kind of using stuff that already exists, so like not sure how different this is going to be. Third, which is pretty much what everyone does, is scrape the internet. I'll do some examples of that later. You could scrape like Flickr, Instagram, Google Images. There's a bunch of ways you could do this. This is what most people do. It is fraught with legal issues, but I don't think anyone's going to sell their art out of this class. But if you want to think like, if you're like hardcore, like I don't want to steal people's stuff, this will not work for you, but we can figure out other ways. Well, I shouldn't say it won't work for you at all, because there are like some open source photo libraries you could pull from. But they're pretty narrow. You're going to have a hard time like getting up to 1,000 images of those, but you could do it. So this one's a little bit of an annoyance. And the fourth is make your own. If you're an artist or like you love sketching or you want to make a bunch of doodles, like you could, in theory, produce 1,000 little doodles. Like that would be fine. Or maybe you just have a body of work that you've been producing over 10 years. Maybe that's enough to get you to 250, and then you need someone else's art for the other 250 or something. This is so obviously like big surprise in terms of like the output you're gonna get. Like if you work on other people's data sets, you're gonna get like exactly what they already built. If you cobble some stuff together, you'll get like a slightly nicer, more interesting data set. Start scraping the internet, you're gonna get some cool stuff because not everybody does it. What you're gonna search for is gonna be unique to most people's work, so you're gonna get some cool things. And obviously, if you do your own, like you're gonna get like some completely interesting and unique stuff. But as we also know, first one's really easy. Second one is fairly easy. Third is getting harder if you like don't know exactly what you're looking for, and the last one is really hard. So it's sort of like they're all correlated, right? It's really easy to do something that isn't novel. It's much harder to do something that is completely unique and interesting. So if you're starting, like, oh, I think I might want to grab something like this. I want to grab something like this. Where do I start looking for those? Google is your friend. You know, Google has crawled the entire internet. It has thousands upon thousands of images. So if you type in some like shoes data set, which I actually did the other day for someone, I think I got like 4 or 5 shoe data sets that already existed. Some of them are on a site called Kaggle. Kaggle is like a machine learning competition site. And they will build data sets for people to like see if someone can optimize a network to do something they want. It's like one of those things where like a company will say like, hey, we'll pay $50,000 to the person who can write the best algorithm to guess what shoe size this is, or guess what shoe color this is, or guess what brand of shoe this is. So that's available. They'll also find like some open source shoe data sets, like those sort of things. So you can type this in, like you can type in shoe data set, that'll come with some results. But if you want to get really like narrowed in on something, like say, I only want vintage Nike ACG boots, guess what? No one's gonna have made a data set about that. So it's like, again, depending on how unique you want to get, it's gonna get harder to figure out exactly how to make this. And you know, you're gonna have to just go in and start making this thing yourself. Like that's the only way to do it. And you may also find like it's not possible to come up with 1,000 images of this thing, right? Because like I don't know how many. I just typed this. Like I don't know how many Nike ACG boots were ever made over the past 20 years. Probably not enough for 1,000 images, right? So I have to get like a little bit like novel with like how I actually do that or how I find those images. So depending on what you're looking for, you might have to like do a lot of different Googling, right? So it's like Google like boots, Google Nike boots, like those sort of things, and figure out what you can find.
And are there like common terms for like specifically data sets of images, like for this purpose, or is it just
I always just start with data set, and that's like if I say flower data set, you will sometimes get like a text-based like names of flowers and their common name and their genetic name. You can always just type in image data set and see if you get something different. It's kind of like with any other Google, you kind of like gotta like play with stuff and be like, am I getting something right here? Okay, change a little bit of the terminology, see what I get out of that. It's a little hit or miss. It's just kind of Google foo, just to sort of see what you get. So if you want to actually approach these things and you want to say like, okay, I have an idea for something, I just want to find a pre-made data set, Google helps. An artist by the name of Golden Levin also has this website, which is an Excel file of a bunch of datasets of images. So he just sort of has this open, like people can go in and add their own. I'll say I've gone in through some of these and I like have not been impressed about what's available. Like I got like 40 images, 40 low-res images, and I've just sort of been like, that's not really helpful. But I will say, like, go through this list and see if there's anything there. You may find some things that are helpful, or you may just get ideas for things to look at, right? So like 20 species of birds categorized. That's gonna be more helpful for something like a classification system, which we won't do in here. But if I just want to see species of birds, I might say like, oh, I only want finches or something. I don't know if that's a species of bird or just like a different thing. But like you could go through there and just sort of see like what's available in there, and then maybe give you some ideas. So there's also like notes in here, right? So like here's someone that's bottlecapclub.org, and if I go to that page, where was that? Here we go. It turns out there looks like there's a bunch of different bottle caps. Okay, that's interesting. I have no idea how to actually find. Yeah, where were you saying stuff? Sorry, where should I click?
The cork crown cap database on the left. The plastic.
Oh yeah, let's see that. Yeah, newest entries. So so now we have a bunch of caps, but the other note that was in there was that you're going to scrape this page. So we have to figure out how to do that. I can show you some techniques to doing that. But one thing that generally sometimes happens is you're just like, cool, well, a Saturday while I'm watching some TV and hanging out on the couch, I'm going to go through these one by one and download each image. That is a little technique that you can do. So if you can go through his list and just sort of see what's there, and sort of figure out, a bunch of different things. Like I said, like this, you will often come across a site like this and be like, okay, there's a lot more work from here for me to do from here, right? The other thing you might want to do is like, I actually need these all silhouetted on white. So now I've got to like figure out how do I silhouette all those. What's that? If that BG will work, although it might not be built to do this type of work, especially because you get some like weird shadows. So building a data set sucks. It's really hard. This is why a lot of like data science teams like actually have an intern that just like Photoshop shit for them. It is the truth of a lot of this stuff. Is a lot of data sets are made by interns. Download all these images, clean them up for me, so I have a data set. So it's also why this class is 5 weeks long, because you might take a week just to do some of this stuff, right? So, but this list is here if you need it. Your second option is to scrape various image sites. Again, this is pretty easy to do, but you will always get data that's pretty messy. So I'll do at least an Instagram scrape, and you can just sort of see some of the problems that come up with it. So one of the things that I commonly find, especially with Google, is you get the same image multiple times. That's bad for your data set because that sort of like tells a machine like to overly weight a certain thing. So you have to make sure you don't get duplicates. You have to like go basically anything you scrape stuff, you're still going to have to go through by hand to make sure it is everything you need. So regardless, this stuff's going to take time. So hopefully this week you can start to come up with an idea and start to maybe like play with some scraping and see what's available. Because you might find like, okay, I had a really great idea, but I can only get 100 images. What do I do? Might be that you have to expand your idea to include those 100 images. Maybe you have to change the idea completely. You have to sort of play with it a little bit. So let's start thinking about this. I'll do some demos in a minute just on how this works. And then like this is something that I've done. You can manually build up a collection of images by just going through them manually, right? So like you go to Google, you say I want all pictures of cats. You find the best pictures of cats that are right for the idea you have. Just download them one by one. Again, like watching TV or like doing something mundane, like you can do it while you're working on other stuff. This is really time consuming, obviously, because you're doing a lot of manual, like copy, paste, right click, save in the jazz, save it to a folder type of thing. And then last one is like make your own. So start drawing, start photocopying, start grabbing paintings that you've done over time, like that sort of thing. You can do it, but again, it's also very time consuming. And like quite honestly, a lot of times I just find myself doing a mix of all these things, right? So I might scrape a bunch of images off of Instagram, then I might go on to Google Images and find a couple more that are right for what I'm looking for. I might have a couple photographs that already match what I want, like that sort of thing. So I end up like cobbling together a little bit of my own. Time consuming, but I tend to find, like, again, I think it's also like, as an artist or a designer, like you know what the quality is you're looking for. So it's easier for you to actually say like, this is the type of image I want. Then you can go to multiple sources to find that image. So here's a list of different tools you can use to scrape things. I will do at least the Instagram scraper, and I can probably, let's try the image downloader one for that bottle cap page and see how that works. There's also a Flickr scraper that works pretty well. This Google image downloader is something that Gene Kogan wrote, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I need to like debug it a little bit, and maybe I can like share it with people, so then you can try to use that as well. So first one I'll do is Instagram scraper. So I'm just going to switch back to my computer now. So this is one you run from the terminal. So this is one that everyone could install right now on your machine. So if you go on your machine, if you just go go up here, hit your little finder icon and type terminal. Hit enter, you should all have terminal up. So what you're going to do is, make this nice and big for everybody. So if you type in pip install Instagram -scraper, I'll leave that up for everybody for a minute. Everybody has it typed in? All right, cool. Let's hit enter. Did anyone get an error message? You got an error message? What did your error message say? Interesting. Okay, let's try. Did anyone not get pip installed not found? You got it.
No, I didn't. I not found it.
Oh, you got no found. Okay, cool. Let's just figure out how to install pip on everyone's machines. Cool. Let's do this. Let's say. Does everyone have, this might be a loaded question, does everyone have admin access on their machines? Okay, so if you do this, sudo easy_install pip. And then hit enter. It'll ask you for your password to your machine. Is that installing for everyone?
Yeah.
This is more of a general question, but is you have Python 3.7?
I probably am running Python 3.7. It doesn't really matter for this though. If you're running 2, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So if everyone has that, then just hit up twice until you get this command again. And then hit enter. Did it install for everyone now?
Mm-hmm.
No. What do we get now? Okay, let's do this. Live demos. All right, pip install --user Instagram scraper. Did that work?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All machines have a little bit of a different trick about like how you can install things. -- user means just install this into your like local system, which is usually, I mean, it's safer. Doesn't really matter, but it's just safer in general. So now that you have that, I'll show you what this repo is. So basically, like, here we go. So basically, this guy wrote a scraper that scrapes anything from Instagram you want. This is included, I think, in the slides. Let me make sure. It is, yeah. So this link here. So you click on that, it'll go to that page. So now that I've got this installed, I need to learn how do I use this thing, right? So what's nice here is here's all the instructions on what he says to use. So to install, he said do pip install. This is what we did. To update, so say in 6 months you want to make sure that you've got the latest version, you can type in this. All right, we don't need to do that one. Okay, so to scrape a user's media, you type in Instagram scraper, then you type in their username, and it says you have to type in your username and your password, but I found that that's actually not true, unless the person you're trying to scrape from is a private account and you follow them. So, does anyone have a favorite Instagram account that has like really great images? Okay, nice ass kissing. I like it. So I was thinking about one today that I'm gonna let's just try to use this one. So if I go to Instagram, there's my own. So you know, yeah. This is the one I'm thinking about. Overview. Maybe it's just overview. Nope. It is overview dash daily. No. Is it daily dash overview? Okay, hold on. Here's how I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna actually like search for this thing. Search. Daily overview, of course. So I don't know if you've ever seen this account, but it's basically a bunch of overhead images. There's some pretty interesting ones here. But basically these are all from like satellite images, right? So let's say like I want to do something where I've like got a bunch of satellite images and maybe create some new satellite images. And this guy just happens to have a bunch of images. I also know for a fact that he's using a service that he pays for to find the images. So it's not really stealing, right? Like he's just paying for a service. I don't know. I would feel differently if I were charging for this project, but I'm not. So let's just try it. So anyway, what was the command? It was Instagram scraper space, and then you want the username. So it was daily overview. So when I hit return, it's now just saying like, okay, I'm looking for some stuff. And now it's downloading. Now it's at 51. So, no one typed that in yet, did they? Okay, cool. Because like the thing that's also messy about this is like, I actually don't know where this is loading to. I think this is loading to this. Okay, so here's what's happening. So basically, I'm going to quit this for now. So where I am is I'm in my user drive. So if I go to my user drive, you'll find that it created a folder called this. So like what I would probably do if I were like actually going to do this like clean, I would actually write a command called make dir that creates a new folder. And it creates a new folder right where I am, which is in the user folder. Never looked at tilde. Tilde is basically a user folder. So I'm going to do make dir, and I'm going to say satellite photos. Because maybe I want to use daily overview, but maybe I also need something else. So I'm just going to create a whole folder of satellite of photos. So I made that folder. Now that folder exists in this drive, but I'm not there yet, right? So now I have to change into this folder. So I need to type cd satellite, and I'm only going to type in a couple letters because when I hit tab, it like guesses that it's this. If I had another thing that was called satellite images, it would basically like fill out satellite and then like it would basically make a noise and be like, you have to finish out the rest of this so I can figure out what you want. So hit that. Now I'm inside of satellite folders. So now I want to run that command. So it's this one. It's made Instagram scraper daily overview. Well, that runs. I'm going to delete this folder full of crap. I'm going to delete this thing, which is also just the logs. I go back in here, and now I'm scraping images. So cool. This seems great. Like I'm done, right? Like I'm getting all the images I need. But as always, now I need to start looking at them. Well, that's his icon. Like that's, I don't really want to use that. That's a good image, but also like, I was finding all overhead images, and now I've got a 3/4 view kind of thing. That's an overhead. I love that one, but guess what? I need square images, and this isn't square. That's what I do. Like that's a good one. That's a good one. That's not the right angle, but it's still pretty cool. So maybe I want to start thinking about like, maybe I'm okay with images like this, right? So like now I've scraped all these images, I've got like a whole other set of questions I need to figure out. So if this is still downloading, I'm just going to stop this now because I don't really want 2,000 images on my machine. The way to stop things is to hit Control-C. That'll like stop any command. Yeah, go for it.
Can you bracket how many you want them?
So that's a great question. So yeah, so there's also this thing, if you look at the Instagram scraper and you look at options, there is,
Maximum.
yeah, so destination, so like there's a bunch of stuff in here, right? Yeah, so maximum number of items to scrape. So we could type in, so we would come back here and we would go, let's do daily overview -m, and let's say I only want 100 images. So I'm going to clear out that folder and just empty it. Run this. And that's downloading all those images now. Another thing that's really helpful is you will often find that you get videos with this, and you might not want videos. So the way to do this is to type in -T, and then so -T and then image, or if you only want videos, you can type in video. If you want story or story image and story video, you can get stories, which is pretty cool. Like that's kind of interesting. I didn't know you could do that, but it looks like it requires a login user and login password because I think stories only work if you're like a friend of that person, right, or something. So you have to have some access to that. So now I've got 100 images. So again, I still have to think about cleaning these things up, but I'm pretty happy with them, with most of these. Like I might delete. Is that an overhead view? It's a 3/4 view. Looks like interesting. So I mean, again, like you finalize, like you're like, oh, this is really interesting. I don't know what to do with this thing. I didn't get any videos, so that's cool.
Happens if they're not the same application. Or this is just from over the border.
So that's what you need to think about after we've done this, is like, how do we actually do this? Like,
Well, what will happen if you like fed them different applications?
it'll probably break actually. So usually for stuff like pix-to-pix or StyleGAN, you actually have to feed it square images, and if it doesn't, it'll throw an error. So okay, so I've downloaded a bunch of images. Let's just say I want to keep all these, like I'm fine with them. But I'm also like, I want to find some other images that aren't in this account, right? So like, what would I do to like do that? So one thing is like, always you can go in and see what hashtags these people use. So here's some hashtags he used, right? So like, oh, aerial photography, that sounds interesting. Maybe I should look at that. Okay, yeah, there's some cool images in here. There's also some not cool images in here. Like, Instagram's a dark place. Like, I'm always surprised by what I find in there. Like, that's clearly not an aerial photography photo. But like, okay, cool. Like, people on Instagram are weird and trying to hack hashtags, but like, whatever. So the nice thing about Instagram is there's also a way to do the Instagram scrapers. You can also scrape hashtags. So here's the command. So you have to do Instagram scraper and then the hashtag without a hash, and then afterward --tag. So like, this is also what's weird is sometimes you do stuff in opposite orders. Reading the documentation of these sites is like going to be really helpful to understand how it works. So let's just try this one really quickly. So we want aerial photography. So we want to go over here. We want to hit up. So we want to do Instagram scraper. We're going to type in that pet, and then it was --tag. And I'm also going to say I only want 100 images.
We were scraping like hashtag jobs of Instagram or whatever, it would just go forever.
It will go forever, yeah. I mean, it'll go until it hits its max.
Yeah.
There might be an actual max on this thing that may max out like 5,000 or something. But yeah, it will hit those. So like, you want to be careful. Like, also you can run that command that's like Command C or Control C to just quit whenever you've hit a certain amount. If you're like not sure what you're gonna hit. Let's go in here. Okay, so aerial photography. Well, shit. Now I'm getting some videos. It's like, I clearly don't want that image. That one's fine. That one's kind of ugly. I don't know what that is, but I'll keep it. Up here's a video. So I might have to go back and rerun it, right? Like, so there's two ways I could do this, right? Is I could go in here into like so in Finder, if you've never really used Finder very much, there's a way to like sort by type or kind. So I could hit this and then I could just say like, okay, cool, here's all the MP4s. So let me just delete those. Now the problem is like I asked for 100, and if I really wanted 100 images, and I just deleted those, and now I'm missing 6 or 7 or whatever. Now I gotta find 6 or 7 more. So again, like depending on what you're trying to do with it, you might have to like go back and like find some new images, or like maybe rerun the thing entirely. This is kind of why this stuff is annoying. It's also why it makes it the art side, because I might decide like I want to curate my photos. Tim might decide I don't give a shit, just give me all the hashtag aerial photography images, and now we have slightly different data sets, right? So like even running the same, like we're running StyleGAN, we might get slightly different results just because we have a slightly different data set. Or like maybe he's only got 3 or 4 different images, so it ends up looking the same in a certain way anyway. So this is like why this is like kind of the artistic part of this thing. I think this is finished downloading. I'm just going to delete these again. So cool. So that was Instagram Scraper. I'm also going to show really quickly, just because I'm interested to see how this works. So there's a Chrome extension called Image Downloader. You just install. The link is in the deck that I provided here. When you run this, it just says, okay, what size images do you want? And now it's giving me 36 images. And you can sort of say what you want out of here, or you can just say download all. And if you download all, that's kind of helpful, just because then you can clean it up, and it's like less than like having to go through it manually through bad UI. This is also the folder, so I think it's like let's just call it bottle caps.
What is only images from links?
That's a good question. Only show images from direct links on this page. This can be useful on sites like Reddit. Oh yeah, so it's like, I don't know, people are posting memes or something. So, okay, let's just run this, see what happens. Why won't it let me? Oh, I have to select all. Oh, also, apparently that only images from links thing didn't work, so we'll run this now. Let's see, what are we missing here? Oh, now I have to select all, okay. Bad GUI, but like it works. So now we hit download, and it's downloading all these images. Hopefully it's not making a mess on my downloads. Let's see. Okay, so we made a folder of bottle caps. When I go in here, oh cool, it like named all of them the exact same. That's annoying. These are also only 200 by 200, so they're pretty tiny. So that might determine what I can use and what I can't use. My guess is if I click on them, could I get the larger size? Is there a larger size? Interesting. So it doesn't look like there is even a larger size. It looks like this is it. Yep. So if I'm trying to do high-res StyleGAN, this is not going to work for me. But like, here's a really simple tool where I didn't have to use the command line, and I got to download a bunch of images. So depending on what site you're on, like that's actually very helpful, because some sites you want to try to scrape via a URL, like it's hard to actually do that. This essentially makes it pretty easy. Those are 2 different ways. I've got some other ways inside of that deck that you're welcome to use. Also, as you come up with ideas, like let's talk about how to actually go find the images, and we can go find them, and we can work on that together. So if you're like, I want to find them, I think I can find 1,000 on Flickr. I think I can use this tag in Flickr. How would I do this? I'm here to help with that sort of stuff. So we'll help find some code for you to go grab some image on Flickr using a tag. You can download it, and then we can see what we get. Cool? All right, so let me just, here we go again. Not this guy. That's what I want. Okay, so let me make sure that we've covered everything we need to here. Cool. All right. So then the next question was basically like, cool, I've got some images. Inside of that satellite photography folder, I have So inside this one, that looks kind of square. That looks squarish, but like definitely is not, right? It's like, yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's 540 by 539, which again is going to throw an error when I load that into a machine. So that's kind of annoying. Also, it's annoying that this one is 1080 by 1080, and this one is 540 by 540. So now if I want to do StyleGAN high res, which is 1024 by 1024, I can't use this image. So like that's also annoying, right? Because you basically want them all to, for most of the models, you want them to be all the exact same size and the exact same crop. For CycleGAN, it's a little bit easier because you can get away with it without it. But other things will happen in that model if you don't. But basically, like, now I've got to do some cleanup. So what I want to show you is a tool that I've written, which is called Dataset Tools. So if you go here, so GitHub, DB Schultz, Dataset Tools. If everyone wants to type that in right now, that'll be helpful. I could also, if you want, I can drop this in the Slack channel, if that's easier for anyone. Okay, so what does this thing do? So it says tools for quickly normalizing image data sets for machine learning. So by normalize, I mean making them all the same, right? So like maybe they need to be squares, maybe they all need to be rectangles. How do I do that? Here are the installation instructions. So if you want to go ahead and start this, you can. My guess is if you hit, so basically, okay, the first thing I would do also just to like clean things up, if you've never used Git before, I would recommend that you basically like somewhere in your computer. So basically like, let's say you want to do this on your desktop. So if you go over here and you go to your desktop and you make a folder called, okay, so let's do Shift Command N. Let's just call this artificial images. So let's call it AI. Just make a folder on your desktop called AI. I would then want to click on that folder name, hit Command C, come back over to terminal and hit CD, and then paste that. And then I would hit return. That's now putting me in that folder. So now what I want to do is I want to run through the installation instructions here. So I'm going to hit git clone and then this URL. If everyone's following along, can you try that and see if that works for you? Okay. Anyone else? Does it work for you? Okay, cool.
I just ran it through the GitHub desktop.
That works too, yep. I'm bad at knowing how all these GUIs work, so I just end up doing everything from command line, so.
No, makes sense.
Okay, cool. Did this work for everyone else? You're still working on it? Okay, cool. There's a chance that you might not have Git installed, and it'll like ask you to like install Xcode and some other stuff just to get Git running. But basically, like, I can help people through that if that needs to work. Cool. So now we've created a folder. So now we're in this folder. So if I hit ls, you'll see inside there is Dataset Tools. I've already installed this on your Paperspace server. Although I generally recommend doing this stuff on your local computer. So installing it here is a little bit cleaner. Or like, it's not going to charge you money because you don't need a GPU to do this stuff. So it's nice to do it here. It saves you a couple bucks maybe. So how does this thing work? Now I need to go into that folder. So I go to CD Data Tools. And then the last step, it says pip install -r requirements-txt or requirements.txt. So if I paste that in here, this is going to install all the additional libraries I need for this thing. And then if you are having problems today, like, don't worry about it because I'll help either later today or next week get everything set up for you. What did you get?
Cannot find a version that satisfies the requirement
Interesting. Let's see what's happening there. I bet mine worked because I already had it installed. So do this for me. Do pip install. Actually, here's how we do this. Let's go to pip. It's pronounced numpy, but it basically looks like numpy. Okay, so do pip install numpy, and then actually just type that and then hit enter. Did that work for you guys?
It said that it was already satisfied.
Okay. You got already satisfied?
But I don't think it's the version.
That's fine.
It's 1.12.
Oh, you got 1.12. Oh, because you're in Python 2 probably. That should be fine. I actually don't think that's going to make a difference. We'll find out if it does, and if it does, then we'll figure out what to do from there. Okay, so now I've installed all the library stuff we need to. So the next thing we want to do is we want to think about, like, what are we actually going to do with this thing, right? So let's say I want to make all of those images that were in this folder, I want to make them all square, right? So like this one's kind of square, this one's kind of square, this one's definitely not square. That one's not square, that one looks square. So basically I just want to figure out, like, how do I make these square, right? So let me think about, like, okay, how would I go about doing that? So let me look at all the options that are in here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So these are the options within this tool set. So input folder, output folder. I can guess what those are probably going to be, right? I'm going to point this one at a folder of images. I'm going to point this to where they want to go. There's a thing called process type. Okay, let me see what these options are. So I got resize, I have square. That sounds interesting. Crop to square. Canny, pix to pix, scale. Crop to square patch, many squares. And it defaults to resize. Okay, so I'm probably going to want to look into, like, figure out what those process things are, right? Then there's a max size, there's a direction, rotate, mirror, border types. Okay, so there's some things here, but I know I want to, like, think about how square works. So I go up to the top here and it says basic usage, and it says, okay, here's what I type in. I type in Python dataset tools, input folder, the path to the input folder, and then output folder, path to output. Here is sort of default, so I know it's going to go to output in that folder that I'm already in. So why don't we try this? So obviously because I wrote this, I can tell you what the answer is. But I'm going to try square first. And I'm just going to see what that does. So let's try this. So let's go. So I'm already in dataset tools. So I know I want this to start with. Let's see, I know I want input folder. And rather than actually try to figure out the path, I'm just going to copy the path from here. So I'm going to go to, let's start with daily overview. Just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that as the path. So that's the input folder. For output folder, I'm actually just going to say, I'm going to say /output. So anytime you see a /, that basically means where I am right now. So what I'm saying is this should go to dataset tools, and it should go to a folder called output. And I'll just leave that as that. The next thing I want to think about is process type. And I want, let's try square. Cool, so I'm just going to hit enter and see what happens. Okay, it's done. So now I can see what happened here. So inside output, there's a folder called square 512. Interesting, the 512 got added. That tells me that there was something about size probably, right? If I go in here and I open this, okay, that looks like the same image. Ooh, that's interesting. So what it did is it took all the rectangles and all it did was stretch the pixels, right? I don't know what that is. Okay, so maybe this did what I wanted to, maybe it didn't, right? Like if this isn't what I want, then I need to figure out how to actually fix this. The other thing I'm interested in is what if I want 1024 images and I got 512? So I go back to the options, and I see here there is a max size. Cool, so let me use max size. Turns out I see the default was 512, so I should probably change that number. And then in process type, I see there was a square option, but I also see there's a crop to square, which sounds like it might just crop into what I want, right? So let's try these two. So I'm gonna go back up here. That just copies the command from previous. I'm gonna change process type square to process, what was it? It was crop to square. And then I want to change that size to max size 1024. Okay, so I think this will be fine if I set it to output because it depends on the size, so I think like it's still going to be okay. So let's just try it, run it. Yep, so square 1024. If I double click in here, okay, that one still looks the same. That one, which I know this pixels were stretched before, now crops in. Yep.
And just crops into the center.
Yeah, so just crops in the center. To do anything where like crop from like a certain place is really tricky because if you want to change it per image, it's going to be harder. But if anyone wants me to write code like that, I'd be down to try it. So we could try something like position to crop from and go from there. So the one thing I think is also worth noting here is that you'll notice that now all of these are 1024 by 1024. So there was an image in there, which let's try to find it. I think it was the second one. Nope, not the second one. Maybe all these are fine. It was in that hashtag, right? Let's see if this one is. Okay, yeah, so all these are fine. So let's actually go back to this one. Let's hit aerial photography. So let's just run this again on this folder. So let's say, so one of the things that's good is if you want to edit like inside of this line, what we can do is just hit Option, click, and then Control W removes basically the previous word. So because has no spaces in it, it's going to remove that previous word. So leave that, and now I can paste in that new location. Now I'll tell you right now if I hit. Well, actually, let's just do it. I'll show you what'll happen. But basically, because I didn't change the output folder, it's all gonna dump into the same folder, which is maybe good for us, right? If we want a data set, we want it all in the same folder. But the problem is for me is now I've got a bunch of stuff that I don't know. I don't know which folder came from which is fine. I mean, for this particular project, it's fine. But maybe I want to actually change that output. So like, let's say if we want to do it again. I actually want to change this output folder. So let's say output to aerial photo. So now it's pushing it to a new folder. And let's see, what was the image in here that was small? I think it was the second one, right? Yeah, so this is now this was 540 by 539, and the name of it was 72, whatever that is. I think it's gonna be this one. Now it's 1024. Now the problem is this got rezzed up, which like maybe is okay, maybe is not. You can see it's definitely blurry, right? Because it doubled in size. So just these are things to keep in mind as you play with data sets, right? Do you want to blow something up or do you just want to remove it? If you want to remove it, how you do that probably manually, at least right now. I don't know if tools in there to like figure out what size things are and skip them. But we could add it to the tool set if someone really wants that. Yeah, so this is like the process that I go through to make a data set. It's labor intensive. Like that's why this is the work that is the hardest part of any of this work. Once you have the data set, it's pretty much like you have to figure out how to like mold it into, or like what the file type is, you need to upload it, and then what's the command you need to do. But like that's it. Like that's like making the data set is the hardest part. Which is why I'm starting with this and hoping that you have like a couple weeks to like come up with a data set before we run stuff. Let's see, we've got 20 minutes left, so I think what I'll do is I'll save the model stuff for next week. but I'm interested in hearing, does anyone have ideas for a data set they want to start playing with?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Let's say we're using those aerial images as a data set.
Yeah.
What do you anticipate you can make out of that?
Yeah, so that's the other question is like, what do I do with that, right? So, and this is a little bit of why, so all this content is already in here. I'm just gonna go over it next week, but if you wanna start looking through it, you can. So basically within models, like I explain what each of these models does. So let me just talk really quickly through like style transfer. So what does style transfer do? Style transfer takes, it applies a texture from one image to the content of another image. Inside here I have repos and papers. So most data science projects, which is like what machine learning is, includes a paper because they're all scientists and they like have to write stuff, mostly for their university to get tenure or whatever. So like they'll write a paper and they'll say, here's how this thing works. And it's full of a bunch of math and other things that you might gloss over, but there'll also be examples of exactly what this thing is doing. So what does style transfer do? Well, it takes an image that is a content image and it takes a texture and it applies that texture to the image, right? So this is the one we were talking about, which is like the Van Gogh image, right? So here is Starry Night applied to this image, right? So this is just style transfer. So you can see this is where it only needs two images, right? It needs a content image, which is the houses, and it needs a style image, which is the style of painting or other things you want. What's cool about this is like, that's it. Like you only need two images. It's pretty easy to do. It takes about 10 minutes to run. So what I generally recommend is like if you just want to play around for like a week or two, this is something good to start with. 'Cause you don't actually need to go and find a data set. This is also the easiest thing. The hardest thing is and I'll just skip ahead. Like if you want to download all those aerial photographic images, what do I do with them? There's a couple of things you could do. The first is pix to pix, which I actually think is the hardest model to work with, but I'll explain a little bit of how it works. So pix to pix takes a folder of images, A, and a folder of directly correlated images, B. So what I mean by that is, let's look at this example. So this is a Google map. This is an aerial photograph. This is a Google map where they've color-coded what is water and what is a building. So I think Google probably does this on the fly, or Google has like basically built a machine learning model to do this. But prior to that, like we had to hire an intern who would go in and like color all these blocks in. But basically, like they have a folder of thousands upon thousands of aerial views and photos of what the color coordination is. So then they train this model, right? So they say red is always a house, blue is always water. So what Gene Kogan did is he took this model and he started to draw weird stuff. So now he's got a square image and he just paints whatever the hell he wants in it, right? So he says, here's water, here's a building, this is probably color coded for grass. There's probably other color encodings here beyond just this. So there's probably like a one for grass, there's probably one for like streets, that sort of thing. So he said, okay, well here's how I'm gonna do stuff with this. So this is one example, right? So like, what's also hard about this is you have to think about what your output is and think about what your training data input is, right? So like, I wanna draw weird shit in like aerial view, like color coding or other things. That was his idea. And it's like, okay, well how do I get there? Well, I've got to train it on normal stuff, which is this. And I've got to know what all these colors map to. And then I've got to be able to do that in this way. There's like a leap here you have to make, right? Like just a mental leap of like, I want to be able to do this, how do I train the data to get me there? Yeah.
And those, certainly with the previous
Uh-huh.
there's like a huge data set on either side of that that's like pre-existing.
Yeah, so basically with Google Maps, you could probably like, through some code, you could generate these squares. But yes, like, this is a case of where there was already a pre-existing data set. And I'm sure like Gene actually didn't think like, actually what I really want to do is this. But it's more like, well, I've got this data set here, what can I do that's funky with this thing, right? But yes, this is a case of where someone who knows satellite photos can do this work and can pull down a data set like this. So this is one thing you could do, right? So if you wanted to take all those aerial photographs you found on Daily Overview and you want to like figure out how to map them, you could spend a week mapping one image to another, right? Like you shouldn't do that. Like just don't do that. It's like not worth your time. You should just work off this, but like you could. If you didn't know this data set existed, you could do that, and that would be a totally fine. I mean, it'd be a cool project if none of us knew this existed. I mean, it'd still be a cool project regardless. I would just kind of feel bad for you for doing all that work, basically. So that's one way of doing it. The CycleGAN model also kind of works the same way. CycleGAN is horse to zebra. So the difference here is that you don't need tightly correlated images. You just need a folder of images and another folder of images. So let's say that I want to do maybe taking the aerial photographs, I separate them into water photographs and land photographs. And what I want to do in the future is convert all land photographs to water photographs to talk about climate change. Now you could totally do that. So basically what you would do is you would go through, you would download all those images and you'd be like, create two folders, one that says water, one that says land, drag them into each. Then you train it on that, and then what you can do is you can feed in new images of land images, and they'll generate like water images from it. I don't know if that's actually how it would work. I have a cool idea actually, but just coming up with it. I'm kind of interested in trying it now. But basically like that would be one way. So that's another model. So again, like, so Pix2Pix, CycleGAN, and StyleGAN take like the biggest repos. So StyleGAN is the one that I generally work in. That's where you can basically create videos of it creates fake versions of these images. So you could take a bunch of aerial photographs, feed into StyleGAN, and generate new landscapes.
Right.
Right. So that's what most people would probably do with that data set. Is they would feed all those images in, and then you could actually create animations. You can invent new things. You could like, and that's like, that's why StyleGAN is really popular, because it is like you're inventing fake things based on things you trained it on.
And that fashion project that you mentioned last
Yeah.
week from Essence,
Uh-huh.
that would have been a StyleGAN, right? Because all the images.
It might not have been
same,
StyleGAN, but it was
so-
something similar. Yes. Yeah.
And they said just create something new
Yep.
based on this data set.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's definitely important to know what you want to make, or like an idea of what you want to make, and then what model makes the most sense for that, and then do that.
Where do you get all your images?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I get all my images from this place. It's called Biodiversity Heritage Library. This is a library that has collected thousands upon thousands of books across all the museums in the world, or science museums mostly, of all of their archived vintage floral illustrations, animal illustrations, like basically books from like the 1800s and 1900s that were like the original, like were like basically science textbooks or like science books. If you just go here and try to find books, or try to find images, it's gonna be really hard. What's nice is they have a Flickr page. And I don't know who runs it, but it's like unbelievable. They are constantly uploading new images. So like here's fish. They've got snakes. They've got other things. They have like, and I mean really like, look at this. So there's 15,000 pages of stuff here, or 1,500 pages of different photos. And what's nice is if you go in here and you say like, cool, I want this book. You go here. This opens a folder of all the books. You then go in here and you go download book, and you download all the JPEGs for the pages. Now the problem is, when you download these books, you will get, maybe not in this case, this one might be an helpful one. You will get a book that is full of text. So I still have to go through and I have to like manually remove all the images. In the case of this thing, I would probably have to go in and crop out each one of these fish, move it to a new file, save it out. I might want the fish to all be rotated the same way. So like there's still a lot of manual labor that I have to do even with these. This is nice because it like gives me a big enough data set in most cases. Like sometimes I'll find a book in their set that is beautiful. I'm like, I love these illustrations, and there's only 40 of them. And it's like, well, shit, what do I do with 40 images? Like, I can't do much with that, right? In StyleGAN, you need about 1,000. Can maybe get down to 750, but like, I can't do anything with 40. So then I have to add other books to it, or I might have to like figure out can I do other things with it. So in the case of the video I was showing earlier, This is actually, this was maybe 100 illustrations, but they were all these like really elaborate, like they were like sort of bouquets, right? They had multiple different types of flowers in them. So I went through and I went in and cropped out squares out of each image. So there were maybe 200 pages, and I generated about 1,000 images by going in and making like 4 squares out of each page. So I had to crop each one of them. I was doing that like while I'm watching TV or while I'm like doing other things on the couch or like, you know, sort of mundane. So I just like, it would take me a week to do that, right? Then I run them through my own script to resize them all the same size. Then with style gain, you have to do a little bit of batch working to like make them a data set. And then you have to wait about a week to process all them. But then when you're done, you've got this thing.
But not the video, right?
No, so the video takes a little bit of extra work, but I have that all down to like pretty much a science now. I know the exact workflow to generate a video of these. I generate new videos of this particular data set about once a week. And I will say what's cool about some of these other models. So for example, the thing I'm working on this week is you can actually run style transfer on a video. So that's a style transfer running on video. It's actually a huge pain in the ass to do this because style transfer generally works where it generates some random noise. So if you actually were to take each frame of a video and just generate a style transfer on it, you would get slightly different images and it wouldn't actually flow together. So there's like a process you have to go through that generates like what are called flow fields in video, and then you style transfer on those. Generating a flow field for a minute-long video takes about 3 days. And then generating all the actual style transfers takes about 6 minutes a frame. So there's like 1,500 frames in this video. So it takes 6 days, 7 days. So it takes a long time to produce these. And this is still 720. This is 720 by 720. It's not even high res. So that's again like why we have a 5-week class is like, if you want to do this, like first you've got to like figure out how to make a training data set. Then you've got to do the video in StyleGAN. Then you've got to take it over to style transfers and run all that stuff. So I'm here to help with that, and like maybe we only get you halfway through the rest of the class, and then you want to take it the rest of the way, and like you know all the steps you have to do, you just have to wait, right? So like it's all available to you. Yeah. So that's like how my stuff works. I'm generally like I'll start in one thing, and I'll move it over to another, and then I'll move it over to another, and like it bounces around until it's like very different from like what the original data set was. Okay, so with that in mind, does anyone have ideas for things they want to do? Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking something like stuff under the microscope and then maybe doing something smaller imagery as well.
Okay.
Like, again, like, I have an idea of like maybe we can get another stuff up, but like,
Yeah.
I also don't want to go through the whole process and be like, oh, this looks like shit. So like, maybe like, you have to.
So if you're going to do anything in style transfer, like what I would say is like just download one image and then try it in a couple of different ways. So like the thing that's cool about Runway is so Runway has a bunch of built-in style transfers. And again, like this is like, so again, remember that Runway is 5 cents a minute and Paperspace is 78 cents an hour. So Paperspace is cheaper, but it just depends on what you want to do with it, whether you have to like set it up and like run things and that sort of thing. It can be a little annoying. But Runway has a bunch of style transfers in here. So let's just type in style. It doesn't have the style transfer library that I'm using. The style transfer library that I'm using is like the best quality, but it takes the longest to run. So what I would generally say is like maybe try a couple of these models and then see if you sort of like the result, but if you aren't really happy with it, it's generally probably true that the model that I installed on your machine is going to be better. So you could always like start here, you just install one of these, adaptive style transfer. And the way these work is then you go file, and then preview, and then you say open file. Oh, you know, the other thing that's hard about StyleGAN or these style transfers is they have built-in models already. So we have to, let's actually look and see if there's a different model here. see models. Yeah, see, so the problem is you can only run photos that they already have. So this is like kind of where it gets tricky. Is sometimes Runway is a little limited in what you can actually get away with. So here you can only run a content image that you provide, but the style image is already pre-chosen for you. So you'll have to like, you could actually use my library to test it. But basically what I would say is like, start by testing a little bit and making sure it works, and then do something like bigger like that. Or like, you know, start figuring out where your data set is, but before you get too far down the road, like make sure that what you have is what you like. Yeah.
I'm thinking about, I have a data set of my drawings.
Okay.
But they're in reference to 19th century etching, so they're
Okay.
mostly like etching styles.
Yeah.
And I made an animation out of it, so I could easily I already have 500 frames, I could make it like 1500.
Yeah.
And get 1500 images.
Okay, cool.
From that. So
Yeah.
then I could use that for the video.
Mhm.
one,
Mhm.
And also for one of the ones that need 500 images.
Yep.
Only needs one data set.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was what I was thinking, just to maybe start.
Mhm.
Like I want to make my own data set.
Yeah, exactly. So like what I recommend is maybe like for next week, what I would say is like maybe just come up with some ideas for data sets. Be like, I might want to do something with this, or I might want to do something with this. What I'll say is look at the deck that I just made and go through these examples. So for example, here's what StyleGAN does. There's different options within StyleGAN. So there's the video. This is a way where you can mix two images together. So these are two of the style images. And this is obviously a flower, but like we mix these two styles together to get this, right? So you can see some of where it's picking up color from this, but you can also see where it's picking up stuff from this and applying it here. So there's ways to like mix and match too. There's also ways to get the original color out of things. So like this is all the texture stuff from using the original colors. There's also ways in which you can get no content at all. So basically you turn the content off and you just get what the textures are produced. So like StyleGAN is good to play with. Like it's like a good, it's a light thing. It takes a couple minutes and you don't have to find a lot of images. So I recommend just everyone just play with that just to get used to like how to do it. And I'll provide code samples for that. So actually like, I think someone was asking me here like what other videos should I watch to get caught up. There are videos that I add in Slack, which let me show them. So if you haven't logged into Slack yet, I would just recommend just like looking just to see. But here is, so I pinned this. So for those joining for the second edition class, here are the videos I recommend checking out. So I would, if you're really interested in like jumping ahead and just figuring out like what model should I play with, these are 3 of the video lectures I did last time about what each of these models does for you. And there's different examples in here. So this might help give you some more ideas about like how do I use this model. So I might recommend like just this week, like maybe watch these videos and then think about like what data sets you might want to be able to find. And then do like a light version of like, cool, can I find a bunch of images on Google? Can I find a bunch of images on Flickr? Like just look to see where you can find stuff. And then maybe next week, let's just sit down and we can talk through like, you can tell me what your idea is or like what data sets you are, and then I can help hook you up with like how to actually go and get them. Cool. Any questions for me?
Do you have a couple of minutes to like maybe do some debugging in terminal?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Would you be talking about TensorFlow and what that is?
I probably won't in this class, but if you're interested in like, I can send some materials to you for it. So basically, like TensorFlow is the library that runs most of these pieces of code, and TensorFlow is just so all the like heavy backend level of like how actually these models work. That's how it manages all that. Because in this class we're using predefined models, you don't have to touch TensorFlow to do any of it. But I'm happy to like sort of like send some materials your way if you're interested in learning more. but it's like advanced level like coding of stuff, so it's a little different. What's nice is these models don't require you to know any TensorFlow to use them, but yeah, obviously if you want to do more with yourself, then you need to dig into that. Cool. Well, that's it. I'll see everybody next week then. Cool. And if I didn't get your Paperspace set up, I will by the end of the week. So like I know that the support guy who's out is going to be back on Thursday, and I'll just have him set it up again for me. You're set up. I think Lucy, and who emailed me this afternoon? You did. Cool. So you'll be set up. I'll set you up this week. I think one other person isn't set up yet, but I don't remember who. But anyway, we'll get everybody set up before the end of the week. So what I would say is for next week, watch. So basically, is everyone in Slack now? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So this is pinned in here, but what I'll do is I'll email this just because I want to make sure I have everybody's email. I'll email this list to people as well, just to make sure that you can review them. But I would definitely recommend like watching these. I think each of these is about 15 to 30 minutes long, so not that long. There are demos online for all these pieces, but these are not the demos. These are the lectures of like how they work and what they're supposed to do. So I'll just help give you a sense of like what the data sets are required for them. So I look at those and then start thinking about like what you might want to grab from the data set. The nice thing about data sets is like if we figure out how to scrape the right thing, like you've got all the materials you need, and then you just need a day or two to like start like editing them and curating them. So it won't take that much time. But if you want to get started with those like Instagram scrapers or whatever, like you can run that stuff anytime. So I recorded all these videos, so I'm gonna put them up on YouTube in the next couple days. So if you want to see the instructions on how to use the Instagram scraper, like I'll add that as well, so you can like try stuff out yourself as well. Cool. All right. See everybody next week.